Chief Obiora was a big man in Enugu, a man whose wealth was not just in his many businesses but also in the grand, high-walled compound that announced his arrival to anyone who saw it. He had everything a man could ever desire: fleets of expensive cars, a thriving import-export empire, and a belly so full of good food it had a personality all its own. But what he truly lacked was a woman who would stand by his side and fill his lonely, quiet mansion with the sweet sound of laughter. So, when he met Amora, a young woman with skin as smooth as polished mahogany and a smile that could melt the heart of a stone, he knew he had found the missing piece to his puzzle and wasted no time in showering her with gifts and promises of a life she could only ever dream of. Amora, a girl from a simple village with dreams bigger than the sky, was taken in by the chief's generous spirit and the life of comfort he laid at her feet, a life where she would never again have to worry about where her next meal was coming from or if the rain would wash away the roof over her head. She agreed to be his wife, and soon their wedding was the talk of the town, a glamorous affair that saw dignitaries and important men from across the country gather to celebrate the union of a powerful elder and his stunning, youthful bride, a spectacle that seemed to promise a future full of happiness and good fortune for everyone involved. She moved into the chief's mansion, a place so big it took days to get used to the winding hallways and the army of staff, and settled into her new life as the lady of the house, a position of great power and comfort that she had never imagined for herself. The chief, in his love for his new bride, gave her everything her heart could possibly desire, from a closet full of the finest Ankara fabrics and imported designer handbags to a brand new, luxurious car, which he presented to her on their 1-month anniversary. But it was not the car itself that caught her attention, but rather the quiet, handsome young man who was assigned to drive it, Chidi, whose calm eyes and strong, silent presence seemed to hold a secret she was desperate to uncover. Amara would find herself lingering a little too long when he opened the car door for her, exchanging a look that held more meaning than any of the chief's expensive gifts, a small spark of something dangerous and forbidden beginning to grow between them. Chidi was not just a driver, he was the chief's most trusted man on the road, a fellow from the same village as Amora who had been taken in by Obiora many years before and had proven his loyalty time and time again. He was the one who drove the chief to his many business meetings, the one who handled the logistics of their many companies, and the one who had an intimate knowledge of all the chief's comings and goings, which meant he knew the schedule and could predict when the big man would be away from the compound. Amora, feeling a little less like a wife and a little more like a beautiful bird in a golden cage, began to seek out Chidi's company, finding excuses to ride in the car with him, to ask him questions about his day, and to simply enjoy the quiet, comfortable silence that passed between them. Their conversations began with simple pleasantries but quickly moved to deeper, more meaningful exchanges, as they shared stories about their humble beginnings, their dreams of a life beyond the chief's compound, and the quiet sadness that seemed to hang over both of them. They would find themselves parking the car on a quiet road, away from the prying eyes of the chief's security guards, just to talk for a few extra moments, their bond strengthening with each passing day. Amora, despite the chief's wealth and all the things he gave her, found herself falling for Chidi, the simple driver who saw her not just as a pretty wife but as a woman with a heart full of her own hopes and fears, a connection that was worth more than all the gold in the world. The secret affair blossomed in the back seat of the chief's most luxurious cars, a forbidden romance that was fueled by a mix of stolen glances, hushed whispers, and the thrill of knowing they were doing something dangerous right under the nose of a very powerful man. Amara began to use her new authority to give Chidi specific tasks that would bring them together, like asking him to drive her to imaginary boutique shopping trips or to visit her imaginary family, creating opportunities for them to have time alone. They were careful and clever, using every trick they knew to hide their connection, but the fire between them was so strong it was a miracle no one else noticed the way their eyes met across a room or the little, meaningful touches they shared when they thought nobody was looking. One day, while the chief was away on a business trip, Amora and Chidi met in a secret hideaway, a quiet little guest house that was far from the chief's mansion, a place where they could finally be alone and speak freely without the constant fear of being discovered. It was there, in that small, secluded room, that Amora finally confessed her plan to Chidi, telling him that she had been gathering information about the chief's finances and had found a way to access his secret accounts. She explained that she had been working on this for a long time, and now, with Chidi's help, they could take a significant amount of money and run away, leaving the chief to deal with the chaos she would leave behind. Chidi, listening to her with his heart pounding in his chest, was shocked by her audacity but also captivated by her fearless spirit, a side of her he had only ever seen in brief, fiery moments. He listened as she laid out the plan, explaining how she had meticulously documented the chief's passwords, account numbers, and the various properties he owned, information she had gathered while pretending to be the dutiful wife. The plan was simple: they would wait for the next time the chief was out of the country for a prolonged period, and then, using her access and Chidi's knowledge of the chief's schedule, they would make their move, disappear with the money, and begin a new life together in a faraway land. The day finally came when the chief announced he would be flying to London for 2 weeks to close a major business deal, a trip that was the perfect window of opportunity for their plan to be put into action. Amora, with a nervous excitement she could not contain, began to pack a small bag, choosing only the most important documents and a few precious things that meant something to her, leaving behind all the expensive clothes and jewelry that had been given to her by the chief. As soon as the chief's private jet took off, she gave Chidi a call, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and determination, telling him that it was time to put their plan into action and that she was ready to begin their new life. Chidi, who had been waiting patiently for this very moment, arrived at the mansion in the chief's personal car, a sleek, black sedan that he knew like the back of his hand, and together, they walked quickly and quietly. Amora transferred the money from the chief's accounts to a new, secret account she had set up, a massive sum that was more money than either of them had ever seen in their entire lives, and then, with a final look at the mansion that had been her prison and her gilded cage, they got in the car. They drove off into the night, leaving the chief's life of luxury behind them, not knowing if they would ever see Nigeria again, but filled with the hope of a future where they could finally be together and free. When Chief Obiora returned from his trip, he was met with a silence in his home that was more unsettling than the usual quiet, and he soon discovered that his wife, Amora, was nowhere to be found. At first, he thought she had simply gone out with friends, but as the hours turned into days, a terrible feeling began to creep into his heart, a feeling that something was terribly wrong. It was only when he checked his business accounts that the full horror of the situation hit him like a thunderbolt, as he saw that his savings had been emptied and his wife had vanished into thin air, leaving him with nothing but a broken heart and a massive financial loss. The chief was filled with a rage so hot it felt like fire burning in his veins, but he was also filled with a deep sense of humiliation, as he realized that the beautiful woman he had married had been playing him for a fool all along. He called a meeting with his most trusted men, a group of powerful friends who were known for their ability to find things that were lost and people who were hiding, and he tasked them with one mission: find Amora and his driver, Chidi, and bring them back to him, no matter the cost. The chief, with his face twisted in a mask of fury, vowed to get his revenge, promising to make them pay for every single kobo they had stolen from him. Meanwhile, in a beautiful, sprawling home in another country, Amora and Chidi were living the life they had always dreamed of, but a strange tension began to grow between them, a quiet unease that had nothing to do with the chief. Amora, who had always seemed so fearless, began to show a side of herself that Chidi had never seen before, a side that was filled with a deep sadness and a longing for something he couldn't quite understand. He would wake up in the middle of the night to find her staring out the window, a look of profound loneliness on her face, and he would often catch her on the phone, speaking in hushed, secretive tones to someone he did not know. One day, while Chidi was out running an errand, Amara received a phone call from a man she called a pauper, and she began to cry tears of relief, telling him that she had finally done it, that she had taken the money and was safe. She confessed to him that she had never loved the chief, that she had only married him to get close to his money, a nest egg that was meant for her true love, the man she had been separated from for years. She told him that she was going to use the money to finally be with him, the man she had been engaged to before the chief had come into her life and taken her away from him, the man she was calling Papa. Chidi, who had returned home early and overheard the conversation, was completely devastated, as he finally understood that the woman he had loved and run away with was not in love with him at all, and that he had been nothing more than a pawn in her grand, terrible plan. He watched as she put on a beautiful dress, packed a small bag, and left the house, leaving a note on the table that simply said, "I am going to be with the man I truly love," a note that was meant for him to find. Chidi, with his heart shattered into a million pieces, was left with nothing but the stolen money, the beautiful house, and the bitter knowledge that he had been used, his love for her a tool she had used to get what she really wanted, and now he was all alone, sitting in the silence of their beautiful, empty house. I hope you enjoyed this juicy and scandalous tale. What do you think will happen to Chidi now that he is all alone with the stolen money? If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Join the community. Subscribe to my channel and let me know what you think in the comments below.